lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good job, good job. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. Happy Monday to everybody out there. It is Monday, right? Everybody have a good weekend. I hope that you did. You're just joining us. It's 6:06 in the morning, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we're building a liberty machine. I'm trying to wake up, drinking out of my conduitnews.com coffee cup. It's a slow one this morning. There was a little bit of NyQuil in my future, or my past, I should say. There was just a little bit in my past, and so I'm kind of groggy. And I'll tell you something else. So it's not just me that was feeling under the weather. I was starting to show symptoms that my wife, she's like progressed even greater. And we don't know what this is. It's like a cough or something, but I mean, she's running like 101 fever yesterday, Joe. Like it started 2 days ago, and it's going from like 101 down to like 99. I mean, we're able to break it with traditional over-the-counter meds. She's going to go to the doctor today. But I'll tell you something else, and I don't know, maybe you parents out there can testify to this, but it's like your children can smell your weakness. It's like the kids, your kids can smell your weakness, and they will pick that day. They will pick the time when you're both feeling under the weather, or you have one spouse that's trying to take care of the other, and they will pick that day. They smell that weakness to do all of the things that they know they should not do, like eat the dog food, play in the toilet, all of these things. They will do all at once because they sense that there's now. It's like the velociraptors, They never test the same part of the fence once. They know though when the defenses are down, they know it's now time to strike. And here, this is my problem with that. And again, my daughter, it will be 2 here in July 5th. Here's the thing, you're challenged also as a disciplinarian, right? Okay, so if you're somebody who wants to discipline your kids when they willfully disobey you, then do you do it? Even when you have all this other stuff going on, because it's hard work to discipline your kids. It's not fun to discipline your kids, right? We have this thing where one of the things, you're not going to throw your food on the floor intentionally, accidents or whatever, but you're not going to intentionally to actually discipline her is a nightmare. It's going to ruin your dinner. It's going to you're going to have to take time to do it. You have to correct the behavior now, or you're going to have to correct it. You're gonna basically gotta be like, I'm gonna ruin, my future peace and sanity if I don't, become uncomfortable now. Pretty much, at least this is what I'm trying to do. But I just want everyone to know I failed miserably yesterday at that, because I was just like, there's too many things going on, and so it was bedlam. It was absolute bedlam in my house. The telephone number 870-275-9799. A little bit about my day yesterday. 870-275-9799. We got a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of the next hour, we're going to talk with Mr. Reggie Cowan. He's going to give us a little bit more of an update on the Arkansas School for Math, Science, and the Arts. If you have not been following this story, you need to check it out. We do have an article up at conduitnews.com that talks about a privilege walk, even a sexual assault allegation that has fueled an investigation. Lawmakers across the state are wanting to investigate the Arkansas School for Math, Science, and the Arts because of policies that have been enforced or haven't been enforced, and things that just seem, it seems like there's a political agenda, and that's what I'll say just from 30,000 feet. It appears that there's a political agenda being enforced on these children that live on campus, juniors and seniors, high school juniors and seniors, and it's being done with your taxpayer dollars. That's what it appears to me. So we'll be talking with Reggie Cowan, who's from that area, coming up this morning at 7:33. And if you want a head start on that, you can go listen to State Representative Brant Smith, who was on the program last week, detailing some very disturbing things, as well as the little write-up, again, at conduitnews.com. Excuse me. All right, so what else we have? Do we do this countdown? Can we get to this countdown real quick? Go ahead and hit the countdown music, Joe. All right, so it's now time to see. Let's see, 7 days from today. How many days until July 1st, 2019? 7 days. So in 7 days, you will be paying state and local sales tax on all of your internet purchases. Yay! So get the purchases in now, folks. That's right. The beginning of the next fiscal year is coming up in 7 days. So you certainly want to prepare for that. Just get ready. All of your Spotify, your Spotify accounts, you're going to be paying as much as $1.75 more a month for your Spotify. All your other subscriptions, you're going to be paying your state and local sales tax. And, this isn't at a time. I would love, for example, you've got the city of Jonesboro trying to raise taxes on people. Do they even know the increased revenue that they're going to be getting on some of these, on the people that have these digital subscriptions? Do they know at all? Something to think about. There's a lot of money that's about to go towards government at all levels. And this internet sales tax is going to be the future of revenue. They've made certain of that. I mean, it's just like when vaping takes off, right? They want to make sure that those vaping products, even the non-nicotine ones, want to make sure, because, it's a sin tax, right? And the truth to be told, the government doesn't want people to stop smoking. Oh, they can virtue signal all they want with their legislation and their speeches, but the fact is they don't really want people to stop smoking because it would be a huge hit to the revenue of the state. Well, that's just why when people have a safer alternative, and I know we could say, well, we don't know if it's safe. We certainly can say it's safer because you're not smoking combustible cigarettes. You're not breathing in tar, right? You're breathing in water vapor. Water vapor, smoking tar. Water vapor, smoking tar. Which one would you rather breathe in? Well, we made sure several years ago to bring that under the umbrella of tobacco so it can be taxed properly. Proper. I mean, that's really up for debate, right? What is proper? What is proper? Do you believe the tax rates in Arkansas should stay where they are? Do you believe they should be risen or raised? Raised. Excuse me. It's 6:13 on a Monday morning. Leave me alone. What I mean, Are you against progress if you don't want higher taxes? There are people out there that would say you're against progress. My idea of progress is having a tax base increase based on more people doing commerce, not raising the rates. My idea is having property taxes go up based on the market, and then the more people that you move there, property tax revenues, rather. The more people that move there, then you have more commerce and you have more revenue generated. But we have governments that are not patient enough. We have governments that just can't stand it. And I'll tell you this, with all these sales taxes, the underlying theme is, whether it's a sales tax in Fort Smith and the many that have been taking place in Central Arkansas, by the way, Little Rock, again, closing golf courses because they're running out of money. This is the future, and I thought Little Rock's supposed to be a progressive city. It goes to show you when push comes to shove, you run out of other people's money, you got to start making cuts where it's appropriate. But all of these attempts at raising revenues, people claim that the current status quo is somehow lacking and somehow we don't have the proper amenities. And really what they're saying is right now, where we live is just, it's no good. It's just, we live in a pretty terrible place. And I just think that's ridiculous. Or if we don't get what we want, we're going to be a really terrible place to live. We don't have stuff to do. It's just, their arguments are so hollow, and they're based on emotion. They're not based on a logical approach. They're certainly not based on conservative tax policy, and that's fine. Just admit that you're tax and spend liberals, because that's what people that do. When you want to raise taxes, you don't want to actually govern. People and politicians that push for tax increases, they don't want to govern. You don't want to go and say, hey, let's take our existing tax revenue, which is increasing because there are more people that do commerce. If you are one of these cities blessed to have more and more people moving to your area, let's actually do this the way we would do it if we wanted to build a pool, let's say, in our backyard. How would you do that? Telephone number 870-275-9799. One more countdown, Joe. Hit it. All right, so October 1st, 2019. October 1st, 99 days away. Today's 24th. So on October 1st, your gas tax goes up 3 cents at the pump if you're pumping regular gasoline, and 6 cents if you're one of those diesel truck drivers. You're going to be paying 6 cents more. Now, isn't that great? That's more money going to the government as well. Because we couldn't possibly find that money elsewhere in our giant budget, we had to take more money from the people. You understand what's going on here, right? I just want to paint this picture. We have more and more money coming out of the people's pockets in Arkansas. Go to conduitnews.com and you can check out, and you can see right now that after the 92nd General Assembly, the people of Arkansas in fiscal year 2020 are going to be paying $70 million more to the government than before the 92nd General Assembly started. And that's ridiculous, considering we have Republican supermajorities who believe in the party platform that says lower taxes to produce economic growth. If more money is coming out of the people's pockets going to the government, that is not lower taxes. That is a net tax increase. The headline here, new tax increase, new tax laws from the 92nd General Assembly. Again, that's up still on the front page at conduitnews.com, as well as you can go to Conduit for Commerce and get the 2019 Arkansas Legislative Scorecards. You can do that as well. Let's see here. I want to see. We got a $75.1 million. That's fiscal year 2020. Fiscal year 2021, $50.7 million increase. Then if we pass the half-cent sales tax that's set to expire, that they send back to us, thanks a lot for that. Fiscal year 2024, all of a sudden it's a net tax increase of $290.7 million on the people. And then in fiscal year 2029, that's $246.3 million. This is huge here, huge, and this is what they have done. This is the road that they've put us on. And, it's better, listen, I know this is uncomfortable for some of you, but it's better to live, I heard this said the other day, it's better to live with an uncomfortable truth than a comfortable lie. You agree with that, Joe? It's better to live, at least you know the truth. Now, some people want to be lied to, some people don't want to know the truth, but it's better to live with an uncomfortable truth than a comfortable lie. Matter of fact, that sounds like a good whiteboard or a good message for this week. We have to throw that up there. But anyway, yeah. So 99 days until your gas taxes go up, and 7 days until your internet tax goes up. Well, starts to begin with, because we had to tax the internet. Which we will see historically that this will be the beginning, in my opinion. My prediction would be this would be the beginning of taking the Internet of tomorrow and slowing it down. Because anytime the government gets involved and starts to tax something or starts to regulate something, they disincentivize innovation. And anyway, and I say that understanding that we may have free speech regulations coming on these corporate giants like Google and Facebook and everything else. But you have to understand that, in essence, because the government has back doors to all these companies and they're taking all of our data, we have some real Fourth Amendment problems as well when you look at the government subverting private corporations, and the, quote, private corporations are okay with it. I wonder why. Is there a difference between them? It's definitely blurry. An uncomfortable truth is better than a comfortable lie. Yeah, I like that. We can apply that to tax policy. We're going to take a break, going to reset, and be back here in just a moment. Welcome back to the program. We've got Congressman Bruce Westerman is on the line. Bruce, how you doing, sir?
Great, Paul. Good to be with you today on Johnny Cash Friday.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you. So I was reading this article, Arkansas Democrat Gazette this morning, about the Job Corps and the Forest Service and you and Senator Bozeman. And tell us about that. What exactly was going on, and how did you guys make it better?
Well, there at one time were 3 Job Corps in the state of Arkansas. There was one in Hot Springs, one in Little Rock, and the one up in Franklin County at Cass. If you've ever driven the pig trail, you've driven by it. But the Department of Labor and Forest Service operate some of these facilities. The one in Little Rock is strictly Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor has been wanting to close, I think, the Forest Service facilities. They closed the one in Hot Springs.
Hey, folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. You know, for all of our listeners, if you ever missed the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your #1 source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. Gentlemen, let's see. I want to remind everybody we do have scheduled for an interview about his new book. Senator Tom Cotton will be on the program. Looks like Thursday at 7:05. So we always look forward to talking to Senator Cotton. Very interesting stuff happening over the weekend. On Friday, I told you about the news that the president did not go forward with the Iran attacks, and there is speculation out there that is just, I don't know really kind of how to get my head wrapped around it. I do know this. I don't even see how the left can deny it. I mean, I'm sure they will, but have you ever seen somebody, they go from calling him a warmonger to then calling him essentially a wimp for not going through with an attack on Iran? I mean, can you? And it was shameless. I mean, they don't care how ridiculous they look. They don't care how petty they look. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And his reasoning, President Trump's reasoning for not going through with the attacks. Did you read what he said? Let's throw up. This is President Donald Trump's tweets having to do with why he didn't go through with the attacks. Let's go to that one first. Let me see here. Yeah. This is a string of tweets. President Obama made a desperate and terrible deal with Iran. Gave them $150 billion plus $1.8 billion in cash. Iran was in big trouble, and he bailed them out, gave them a free path to nuclear weapons, and soon, instead of saying thank you, Iran yelled, "Death to America." I terminated the deal, which was not even ratified by Congress, and imposed strong sanctions. They are a much weakened nation today than at the beginning of my presidency, when they were causing major problems throughout the Middle East. Now they are bust. On Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites. When I asked, how many will die? 150 people, sir, was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it. Not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone. I'm in no hurry. Our military is rebuilt, ready to go, by far the best in the world. Sanctions are biting, and more added last night. Iran can never have nuclear weapons, not against the USA and not against the world. Now, what did the left do? What did the media do? Well, they put out there Joe Biden, former vice president, candidate for president, saying that Trump's story doesn't add up. It doesn't add up that he wouldn't know what the collateral damage, what the casualty count would be before the operation. Okay, so they're going based on a tweet where you have a character limit saying his story doesn't add up. Chris Wallace, his story doesn't add up. That's not how things work. You plan out the attack, he would have already known. Okay. Let's focus on in what order he learned. Do you understand how ridiculous this is? Let's focus on in what order did the president learn how many casualties the estimates were, how high the number was, and instead let's focus on the fact that let's not focus on the fact that he called off the attack because it was an unmanned drone, meaning nobody died, and he was about to kill 150 people. Now, do you remember when the left was anti-war? Do you remember Code Pink? Do you remember Iraq? Do you remember Afghanistan? Do you remember the protests where the left was anti-war? Bring our boys home. Don't do this. Do you remember how critical President Trump was during the campaign about the Iraq War and the mistakes that were made? Does anyone remember that? If you used to be an anti-George W. Bush, anti-war leftist, Donald Trump agrees with you. It was incredible. And when I heard his response, when have you ever heard the president make a response like that and saying, you know what, I was thinking about it. I was like, nah, 150 people are going to die for this. No. We'll just do a cyber attack. We'll just hit them with more sanctions. That's incredible to me. Also, it sends a message, by the way, if there were any doubts whose finger is on the trigger when it comes to the force and the might of the United States military, there is no doubt it is, in fact, President Donald J. Trump. Welcome back to the program. We've got Congressman Bruce Westerman is on the line. Bruce, how you doing, sir?
Great, Paul. Good to be with you today on Johnny Cash Friday.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you. So I was reading this article, Arkansas Democrat Gazette this morning, about the Job Corps and the Forest Service and you and Senator Bozeman. And tell us about that. What exactly was going on, and how did you guys make it better?
Well, there at one time were 3 Job Corps in the state of Arkansas. There was one in Hot Springs, one in Little Rock, and the one up in Franklin County at Cass. If you've ever driven the pig trail, you've driven by it. But the Department of Labor and Forest Service operate some of these facilities. The one in Little Rock is strictly Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor has been wanting to close, I think, the Forest Service facilities. They closed the one in Hot Springs, and then they announced a week or 2 ago they were going to close pretty much all of the Forest Service facilities, which would have gotten the one in Cass, which is a really nice facility. And Senator Bozeman and I had a meeting with the Department of Labor and with USDA. This obviously affected other states as well, and we did a bicameral, bipartisan letter, and the Department of Labor decided to reverse their decision and not close those facilities. Now, the way they rank the performance of the facilities, the one at Cass is not one of the higher performing facilities in the country, so Senator Bozeman and I want to work with them, as well as Senator Cotton was on that letter too, to make sure that they are using the resources that they're being given to provide the services that are best for the students and that are being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And I know when we had the meeting with them, they were making the case that it was a low-performing facility, and Senator Bozeman looked at them and said, well, whose problem is that? That we funded it and you have the facilities, and it's your responsibility to make it a higher-performing facility. So we're for now, the center is going to remain open, and there's a lot of people that work up there, a lot of students that go to that, and they produce some good results in areas like career and technical education that's much needed right now, and also some kind of specialized stuff like fighting wildfires and doing some forest management. So it's a good purpose, a good facility, and I'm glad to see it's going to remain open up there in Franklin County.
Man, that's good. Yeah, and I'm sure the people of that that area are certainly grateful.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. 870-275-9799 is telephone number. If you would like to contribute to the conversation this morning, we were just talking about President Trump. We were talking about the fact that he didn't launch the attack and how everyone is now attacking him for not launching the attack. And if they can't do that, then they're disagreeing with his story about when he found out it would be 150 casualty estimate for a drone. It's pretty rich out there. They really have no shame here. Now there are, I have to tell you this. Did anyone see the other reports, the follow-up reports? For example, this one that said that Iran executes an ex-defense employee accused of spying for the United States. This from Sky News. They report that Iran executed one of its former Ministry of Defense employees suspected of spying for the U.S. Jalal Hajazavar was a contract employee for Tehran's aerospace organization. He left his post 9 years ago and was convicted by a military court after an investigation which discovered documents and spying equipment at his home. It claims he was executed at a prison west of Tehran. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he will impose additional sanctions on Iran. There are other articles out there. I know the headline on Drudge described the guy as a, quote, CIA, end quote, asset over there. I found that interesting. I also find this interesting. There are different explanations. Go to this video, Joe. This is Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. It's just a very short, go to the very beginning, very short video clip of them celebrating right after the meeting with the President Trump. This was before we knew anything about the attacks. Listen to this. It's a Chuck raising the roof with Nancy.
How would I say this? Chuck.
Okay, so that's weird. A lot of people don't know what was going on there. Now, some people say the explanation is that Chuck had just found out that his mom gets to come home from the hospital, and that's why he was celebrating. That's one explanation. Another explanation is they had gotten something out of that meeting about Iran that they wanted. They had gotten something out of that meeting about Iran that they wanted. And from there, there are also reports, that you had some media outlets saying that the attacks against Iran, they reported that they had already happened. That was... All I'm saying is it's very weird, and, with all of the leaks that surround this administration, I can't help but wonder if there weren't leaks when it came to this attack leading up to, and is it possible? And if you read some of these theories, again, reports, but there's, I don't know what the truth is. Is it possible that Iran somehow knew we were coming? I mean, they certainly knew we were mad, so they would have been prepared regardless. You can obviously make that argument. But, man, I tell you, it's one of the great things about the Internet is you certainly at least have people out there asking questions that the mainstream media doesn't. They're too busy. Mainstream media is too busy wanting to be like, did the president lie when he tweeted when he found out the estimate was 150 people? What if the estimate was 150, but what if there was going to be many more casualties in these three targets that we... Who knows? But the bottom. Let's go. You know what? Go to this. Go to Judge Jeanine. We're going to pick up in the middle of Judge Janine's opening statement from her show last night. Donald Trump retweeted it. Not this one, although that's a really funny one. We're going to get to that one here in a minute. Yeah, right there. And go ahead and hit play right where that is.
I didn't think it was proportionate.
So now the criticism is far and wide. How could the president not respond? This drone itself is worth more than $200 million. Not true. The whole research and development program, of which this drone was just one of many, was $200 million. And many demanded action, not just the hawks saying, we can't allow this to happen to us. But who are these people? I'll tell you who they are. They're the old military-industrial complex, the layer upon layer of bureaucracy, using the old system of weeks and months of assessments and reports before final recommendations and decisions are made. This old system that Donald Trump is slaying is the very system that got us into war in Iraq for over a decade and for almost 2 decades in Vietnam. The people complaining are the ones wedded to the system of more and more money and more bureaucracy. We no longer need to support this wasteful, needless bureaucracy. Donald Trump's decisions are thoughtful, effective, and insightful, especially compared to Obama, who couldn't figure out if he should contain, dismantle, or destroy ISIS, none of which he ever did, by the way. So we took the air out of Iran's attempt to engage us. And after the president gave details about what he had intended to do, specifically taking out 3 sites with B-52s and sizable missiles, but he had the restraint and didn't fire 1 shot. Not like the Obama administration, which apologized to Iran after Iran forced our soldiers to their knees with guns to their heads for the world to see.
You forget about that
now
one?
Think about this. The truth is, no one is going to join the United States when an unmanned drone is taken down. The man has common sense. He doesn't get caught up in the weeds, and he continues to keep us safe. So we don't go to war with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is still open. And that, my friends, is a good news Trump story.
Judge Jeanine Pirro. It's hilarious when you think about it. They say the president was going to get us involved in war with Iran. They said he was going to go to war with North Korea. And none of those things have happened. And what are you going to do? I mean, if the president demonstrated that his finger alone is on the trigger of the United States military's capabilities. He, gets his people to draw the plan up, puts it into motion, and then aborts. And then he says, you know what? No one died. Yeah, you destroyed some of our equipment. And Judge Jeanine here makes the point. He knows nobody. The rest of the world's not going to join the United States in any conflict against Iran. He'd be universally condemned, not to mention if there would have been any civilian casualties. And the Iranians, what they would love to. If they chose not to fight, the Iranians themselves would probably ship, if they could figure out where the targets were, they'd probably ship as many Iranian civilians as they could into those areas so that they would die. And the United States would get the blame, and then there'd be all this worldwide condemnation. And the president says, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Again, I have to tell you, if you were an anti-war leftist in the George W. Bush days, how is this not your guy? How is this not some of the decisions that you would want him to make? I mean, it's an honest question. It just kind of shows, it goes to show you how quickly we can pivot away from things that used to outrage us before. And I think, I think the mainstream news media, and even reporting this, there may be some people be like, oh, well, that seemed like a reasonable decision then. Who didn't go to war with Iran. Because, 150 people were going to die, according to reports, and it was an unmanned drone. When I first heard of this decision, by the way, what my first thought was? I wonder if the president's been talking with Rand Paul during this whole thing. And I think the answer is yes. This is a decision. This is a type of decision, in my opinion, that Senator Rand Paul would have argued for, would have made. Especially the logical one of 150 people to die for a piece of equipment. You really want to do that? Now, there are some people out there that say, well, yeah, you're right. It's not a proportionate response, but the United States is not supposed to make proportionate responses. We're supposed to just, come in with the fury. Well, that may be what people have done in the past, and that certainly is the foreign policy mentality of the past. But do you think it's a weakness? I don't. My goodness, I don't. I think it's prudent. And I think it actually shows you the might and the strength that we do possess. And to come 10 minutes away from launching it and pulling back and saying no, and that making the headlines, and the story was actually put out there, and the government did not request the New York Times to pull the story back. The president wanted this narrative out. He wanted this to be out there for whatever reason, probably several reasons. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Now, in recapping what has happened over the weekend, obviously that was a huge story. And looking at the double standard, looking at the hypocrisy of the media, that's a huge story. But there was also another story that may actually, again, have to do with leaks. And that is the fact that ICE raids were supposed to take place, and there was supposed to be mass deportation starting. This has all been put on pause. Now, some people think it's been put on pause. They're trying to give Nancy Pelosi credit, and Nancy tried to get the Democrats to work, and now Nancy's asking for a giant amnesty. Maybe the Congress can do something before this starts. But there are other reports suggesting that the real reason that everything was put on hold is because you had the acting Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Director that just didn't want to do it, and maybe even leaked the details beforehand to the press because he had some sort of moral objection with going and trying to enforce U.S. immigration law on people who are here illegally. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just telling you there's two different stories, and it seems like there's always two different stories at this point, but it's well beyond the left-right spin. It's like completely different narratives. And that's fascinating to me. But who knows? But again, if you take the official line, President Trump looks like he's trying to negotiate. And I'll tell you this much. The Democrat Party does not want the president to make a deal on DACA kids. The president does not. The Democrat Party before this election definitely does not want the president to come on board with any sort of amnesty. They're not going to do it. And case in point, the media, once again, are dishonest. Jake Tapper gave the most disrespectful interview to Vice President Mike Pence I think I've ever seen. And but that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the very beginning of this interview. Go to the Breitbart article, Jake Tapper laughs at Vice President Pence during a CNN interview. Just listen to the very beginning of this. I wish the Vice President would have stopped and pushed back against Jake here because Jake Tapper just gets away with a complete lie. Listen to this.
Our border, and that along with border security will end this crisis.
I think Democrats would argue that they want to do a deal with President Trump, but he hasn't showed any inclination. But I do. First of all, I want to say one thing.
I don't know where that would come from. This president.
You said a second ago that 90% of the people who get detained.
That's all he got. That's all he got. He didn't push back. He tried to push back. The president doesn't want to make a deal. That's what Jake Tapper just said. That is a lie. I don't know if you remember, the president was willing to make a deal on the DACA children. Do you remember this? He was willing to grant them a pathway to citizenship. To many, to my dismay, to many conservatives' dismay. And he was willing to do this in exchange for funding for a border wall. And they said no. Go back and look it up. It's fact. He made a lot of people upset on the right by even attempting it. The Democrats rejected his deal. The president was trying to give them what they wanted in exchange for what he wanted, and the Democrats said no. Do you know why? Because they'd rather the dreamers remain victims that can be exploited to maintain and acquire political power than they would actually want to solve the problem, fix their circumstances, and President Trump all of a sudden doesn't look like this racist that they constantly try to paint him as. Jake Tapper, he doesn't want to make a deal. He tried to make a deal, and he gave them what they wanted, and they rejected it. That's the truth. And all these, and they go around and they just spew these lies. I mean, if you honestly think about that, when he says the fake news is the enemy of the American people, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. It's shameless. It's absolutely shameless, and it's one little thing. Like, and you don't let the vice president finish. You cut him off. You move on. You try to push. And there are people that look to Jake Tapper as, again, a news priest. He can absolve you or condemn you based on an ever-rotating wheel of morality. It changes from one day to the next about what's morally acceptable or morally reprehensible. And then he also is some arbiter of facts. And there are people that believe him. But he's a liar. Jake Tapper is a liar. These people in the mainstream news media are liars. Trump's not willing to make a deal with them. First of all, I mean, that's not even true. That's not even true in what just happened. He had these ICE raids scheduled, these deportations, and he stopped them. And he said, maybe Democrats and Republicans in Congress, maybe the Democrats in Congress can come up with something, put something on my desk. That sounds like he's open to something. Not to mention he was willing to give the DACA children amnesty, a pathway to citizenship. He was willing to do this. Those who, were brought here. Again, what's the line? They were brought here through no fault of their own. They were being dragged across the border by their parents, and they're kind of caught in the middle. And, of course, most of these kids are now adults now, but you get the point. They want a pathway to citizenship. Donald Trump says, okay, I'll do it. Just like some money from a border wall. They say, no, not at all. And there was also some other stuff going on behind the scenes of a court decision that was, what Obama did in doing the DACA was unconstitutional, but then there was a court that said it was totally fine. And as soon as the court said it was okay, then they didn't want to make a deal again. There's that to think about as well. But he was willing to do it. And the Democrat Party said, no, we don't want Trump to get credit for fixing the problem, and we really don't care about these people that we claim to care about. We'd rather them stay victims that we can exploit than fix the problem. Because Trump would have put it to bed. I mean, I would have been upset about it, but Trump would have said, okay, this issue with DACA kids, solved, it's handled, it's done, it's over. It's no longer even a part of the political discussion. You know, it's a victory. It's a victory. You would say it's a victory for the country. You might say victory for the president, but it's over. It's done. And no, they said, we don't want to do that. The personal hatred for Trump trumps any sort of thought of what would be good for the country, what would be best for the country as a whole. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. Let me know what you think about this, 870-275-9799. We've got Reggie Cowan coming up here at 7:33. Also want to tell you about the record spending. Looks like the state of Arkansas is on track to increase spending over the next 8 years, or really, I guess, in an 8-year period. I'll tell you about that. It's up at conduitforaction.org right now. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
And the reason I want to remind everybody, you're a forester, Congressman Westerman. We talked about that before, but a lot of people don't, because it's such a specific position. A lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that I've got the worst education for anybody to serve in Congress, because in undergraduate school I majored in engineering, and in graduate school I studied forestry. And if you think about those two careers, engineers think with logic and reason, and foresters are always looking at long-term horizons. So that skill set is not particularly appreciated in politics all the time, but it's glad to bring a different perspective to the table.
Oh, absolutely. So what's the impeachment talk up there? I mean, you think the Democrats are going to do it, or do you think Nancy kind of knows that if she did, there'd be more negatives than positives?
I think Nancy knows that, but I don't think she's convinced her colleagues of that yet. It's so bad.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, so this weekend I saw a tweet by the president. It was like a retweet, and I'm telling you, this brings trolling. This brings trolling to an entire new level. President Trump operates, when it comes to trolling people on Twitter, on a completely different plane of existence. He operates in like the metacosm of reality. Listen, go ahead and hit play. This is Trump 2024, 2028, 2032. Now Trumpism. I mean, look at this. It's just great. Keep going. We lost the audio, man. Yeah, it does. Yeah, give me the audio on this. The audio is the best part. 1972, 29, 2100, 20. Anyway, it just keeps going. It's fantastic. And it ends by saying Trump forever. Okay, so this is trolling. And people, of course, respond by saying, "Oh, so what do we want now? What is this, a dictatorship? Is President Trump? He wants to be dictator." I'm not. Listen, no, that's not what he's doing here. He's just trolling the world, and it is fantastic. In a way, it's very comical to me. The left has a field day. The left melts down over this. And the president just, has a laugh. So, anyway, if you haven't seen it, you can go. It's one of his most recent tweets, and it's at Real Donald Trump. I mean, you guys know this. What do you guys think of this? Tell me 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. There was a little bit of a real quick, one last national news story. There was text messages that were unsealed by a judge that detail text between Paul Manafort and Sean Hannity, obviously from Fox News and from his very successful radio program. And the media likes to have a field day. They're trying to say that there's something there, and there's really nothing in these text messages that are too much different than the things that you hear Sean Hannity talk about on Fox News over his show. But it's 50 pages of Paul Manafort and Sean Hannity text messages. But I will tell you this. The most interesting part of these text messages has to do when Paul Manafort complains that in order to get a deal with Robert Mueller, he would have to, quote, make expletive up, make S-word up on the president and refuse to do it. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Shortly after Manafort's home was raided in the summer of 2017, Manafort tells Hannity, Mueller is trying to intimidate me. The raid is just one example. I won't let him succeed, but it is very lonely fighting this fight. I feel all alone out there, except for you and a few others. Our side is not engaged. Hannity responded to Manafort's August 11th text message and rightfully pointed out how corrupt and biased Mueller's investigation, or Mueller's special counsel team was. Let's see here. Manafort told Hannity in March of 2018 in a text exchange that in order for him to be able to cut a deal with Mueller and Weissman, he would have to, quote, make stuff up on the president. Quote, why don't you get a sweetheart deal like Rick Gates, Hannity asked. They would want me to give up Donald Trump or family or Jared Kushner, Manafort replied. Understand there is nothing to give up on Donald Trump. What did Jared Kushner do? Hannity asked in a text message. Quote, nothing, just like I did nothing. They will want me to make stuff up on both. I will never do that. Everything that we said. And why is Manafort now, what is he, at Rikers Island in solitary confinement? Paul Manafort's now in solitary confinement, and it's because he refused to make stuff up on the president. And they expected Manafort to, because Manafort was part of this lobbyist system where you get somebody elected and then you sell access to them. It's just the way things are done. And somebody like that who's made as much money as Paul Manafort had on the system was expected to save the system that President Trump is trying to drain. And Manafort said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give up the president. And that's why Mueller got the convictions and charged him and indicted him with stuff he did 20, 30 years ago. And that is a double-tiered justice system.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Here it's kind of gotten like Charlie Brown's teacher. I mean, it's just the Mueller report, the impeachment, and every other thing they're going after. I know I'm getting tone deaf to them, and I think the American people are too. It's just, I don't know why they won't move on to working on policy that's actually good for the country. they've been doing some appropriation bills, but we have no budget, so there's no top number for them to write to. So you can imagine what a Democrat with a pen to write appropriation bills for spending when there's no cap on how much they can spend. So these are bills are not going anywhere in the Senate, but they're trying to make political statements with them. It's really when you're here where I am, seeing it from this side, it can be frustrating, but I also know that there are better days ahead, and that the American people are seeing that there is a difference between free enterprise and capitalism and socialism and big government, and that's being prominently displayed with some of these policies that are being pushed.
You got all of these Democrats that are running against each other in the primary, and they are, beginning to kind of let their claws out and start devouring each other a little bit with, Joe Biden and that sort of thing. But, do you think that the left is going to be able to resist the urge to nominate someone that's very, more pure, that passes their ideological test of socialism, like an Elizabeth Warren or like a Bernie Sanders, versus somebody like a Joe Biden that I still think is easily beatable, but, is kind of, at least presents himself as somebody who's middle of the road, but, he's pretty radical himself as well. I mean, do you think they're going to nominate somebody who's far left?
I don't think they have a choice, because literally everybody they have in the race, including Joe Biden, is far left. There's just there's far left, and then there's so far left you can't even see them out there. And it wasn't that long ago that Biden was considered far left, and radical. He was Obama's vice president, for goodness sake, and now he's the moderated one, and Nancy Pelosi is the voice of reason in their party.
Wow,
that's where we've gotten to in this.
That's a really good point. Nancy Pelosi is the voice of reason. We're talking with Congressman Bruce Westerman, and he is from District 4, and that's in part of our listening area. So do you think, and I know I've asked you this, I think I asked you this last month when you were on the program, but do the Republicans think that they have the ability to take back the House of Representatives in 2020?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a seat that's in North Carolina. There's a race coming up in September, and I think that's going to give us 200 seats in the House. And that means we've only got to win 18 more. And there were about 40 seats that were decided just between a couple of percentage points in the last election. I think I saw a statistic. I think it's 30 or 40 seats that the total margin of victory was, or on either side was 80,000 votes. So that's how close it was last time. And then there were all those seats in California that we won on election night, and they, with their new California voting laws, they kept bringing ballots in and counting ballots for 2 or 3 weeks until they counted enough for the Democrats to win, and then called the election. And they're trying to spread that kind of policy all across the country. Obama and Eric Holder are trying to do it in Arkansas. They're trying to use our ballot initiative system to do that. Got that lawyer down in Little Rock that writes those ballot initiatives.
So I haven't heard this. So you're saying David Couch is coordinating with Eric Holder and Obama to put something on our ballot to change our election laws?
Yeah, that's happening all over the country, and they're targeting every state where they think they've got a chance to influence the.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
As the Drudge report appears to be just completely down this morning. I don't know if it's a problem that I'm having. I mean, I looked at the headlines earlier this morning, but I wasn't having trouble pulling up an article. I guess about an hour ago. Anyway, welcome back to the program. This is hour number 2, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. And you can call us or you can text us, the number 870-275-9799. We're waiting. Coming at the bottom of this hour, we're going to be talking with Mr. Reggie Cowan about this developing Arkansas School for Math, Science, and the Arts investigation that's been going on, and you can learn more about that at conduitnews.com. I'll be going over that article here momentarily. Last hour we had a great hour. We talked about the coming tax increases that are coming on the people, gas tax, internet tax. We also talked about the net tax increases we now have that are, it's very clear as day. The Arkansas General Assembly, because of the stuff they passed, we have net tax increases coming on the people for fiscal years 2020, 2021. And 2024, 2029. We'll talk about those, I'm sure, some more as the days go by. But specifically on Arkansas, we do need to focus on something that I used to talk quite a bit about. Haven't really talked about it in a while. Certainly was talking about it about a year ago, almost every single day. And that's government spending in Arkansas. Now, there are those out there that will be quick to try to combat or push back this idea that spending goes up in Arkansas because of inflation, and it's going to have to increase some every year because of that that phenomenon. That is partially true, but not to the numbers that we're seeing. And I think that's the important thing. Is I don't think that number about increased spending or that excuse about why our spending has increased in Arkansas is just because of the natural idea that a dollar doesn't go as far next year as it went this year. I think that, again, you can make that argument in some regard, but not with the sheer volume, not with the sheer numbers that we're seeing. And so I think your arguments fall flat there, respectfully, those of you who would say that. Headline, Conduit for Action, Governor Asa Hutchinson is on pace for a $1 billion spending increase in 2 terms. This is something that does need to concern all of us. And if you'll talk to politicos, they will admit, yeah, we do not care about spending. We don't have spending under control. And behind closed doors, they will totally acknowledge that the idea that this is just happening because of inflation or it's in line with other states' budget growths and that sort of thing, they will totally dismiss that. It is well known that getting spending under control is not a priority under this administration. It is accepted. It's well known. People will tell you that. If a lot of them off the record, but that's just the way it is. This is again from the article. We now have 6 fiscal years of evidence. Okay, so we got 6 fiscal years of evidence. You have numbers. These are in the books, not going to change. Governor Asa Hutchinson's spending priorities are very obvious. Based on the average of these 6 years, if we extrapolate out similar increases, which Hutchinson promised in his 2018 primary election, we are on pace for over $1 billion in Arkansas state government spending increases in the 8 years of Governor Hutchinson. This does not include spending increases from federal tax dollars. We're just talking about, Arkansas's little old $5 to $6 billion budget. Fiscal year 2016, we had a spending increase, 128 million, a budget increase. 2017, 143 million. 2018, 163 million. 2019, 173 million. 2020, we dropped to 124 million, but 2021, 128 million. That is an average yearly increase of $143 million. Now, I'm telling you that they look at that number, that $143 million, and there are some that say of an average spending increase every year. There's some that say, well, that's just natural. The government's obviously going to do that. No, look, we're about to get hit in fiscal year 2021 with a $70 million tax increase. Does that feel like chump change to you guys? And I bet it's going to be even higher than that when we actually see the revenue receipts. Spending $143 million more it's a large amount of money for a state that only has a $5 billion state budget. If we add in the average yearly increase for the last 2 fiscal years, we get a total increase in state government spending of $1.15 billion for 8 years. So just so we know, that means that the legacy, if this continues and these estimates or extrapolations pan out, that means that the governor's legacy as a Republican with a Republican majority in the House and Senate is on track to be growing government by over $1 billion. Now, that's something that last sentence there, growing government, that is the definition of growing government. Okay? I mean, that's exactly what this is the government spending more, budget increasing. Also, you have the tax base they're getting more money from us. This is what we're talking about here. Why can't it stay the same size? Why can't it stay the same size relatively? Now, see, I don't know. I would be interested to know, has the Arkansas state economy grown at an average of $143 million? I mean, you really need that number as well. GDP. I mean, technically, this is why we need a TABOR. We need a taxpayer bill of rights. We need the government to essentially operate under a system where if the government grows too much and it goes past this cap of, when you look at what private sector growth is versus what the government does, and the government has to send that money back to the people in some form of tax cuts. I mean, ideally, if you have the economy and the population growing and government grows after the fact, government in relation to the private sector is the same size. So that's not to say that government just stays the same statically forever. It's to say that your priorities are your priorities are thinking of the fact that the government itself doesn't exist if it's not for those out there investing, taking risks, employing people, as well as those going to work every day, putting food on the table for their families. You guys get the picture, right? But right now, I mean, they just raised a bunch of taxes on us, and they didn't even have a discussion on getting spending under control. They didn't even have a discussion on cutting anything, where we say, hey, maybe we should cut spending here, and then we don't have to raise taxes on gas. Or maybe we should cut spending here, and then we go to the people and say, we just need a little bit. Now, I would have still been against that, but you get my point. They didn't even have the discussion, which is frustrating because that's a mentality that just suggests that you don't believe in fiscal conservatism. It's a mentality that says that true conservatives don't really even seem to have a seat at the table unless they're willing to. The only way you have a seat at the table down there is if you concede that government will in fact get larger after they legislate whatever they're going to legislate. So if they, and I guess I want the conversation to change. I want, in order to get a seat at that table, and isn't this why we voted for Republicans? See, the Democrats, this is the way they worked. If you were a Democrat and you were in power in Arkansas when the Democrats had the majority, the only way you got a seat at the table was if you believe that government was going to grow, but the debate is how much, and we're going to debate how much we're going to let it to grow. Well, then people elected Republicans. I think they elected Republicans assuming that now the debate shifts. And now in order to get a seat at the table, you have to admit that the goal is to argue over how we keep government the same size, if not cut it altogether, or start to reduce it. That's why people voted for Republicans, because they thought, they might not have thought as deeply as we're talking about it now, but generally speaking, that now the conversation is, how do we keep government the same size? Do we need to move funds here, move funds there? But we're not going to grow it. And if you want a seat at the table and you want to grow it, you don't get a seat at the table, because that's why we elected Republicans. But we have the results. We have tax increases and we have spending, which is exactly what the Democrats are known for historically. Oh, you're just a tax and spend Democrat. You're just a tax and spend liberal. That's what people voted out of office starting in 2010 in the state of Arkansas. They voted out tax and spend Democrats at the local level, at the state level. It's been almost a decade, and the Republican supermajority gave us tax increases and higher spending. Now, again, go ahead, Joe. You can take this article down, and I want you to put up our message for at least today. This is uncomfortable for many of you to hear, I'm sure, but it's the truth. And it's better to have and live with an uncomfortable truth than to live with a comfortable lie. Wouldn't you agree? Let's live with the uncomfortable truth that it's been almost a decade since the people of Arkansas started voting for Republicans. And when it comes to economic, now on social issues, yes, we've turned the corner. We have turned this state around socially. It's still not where it needs to be, because we have people in the administration that didn't want, to pass a bathroom bill. We had, some, if you talk to people behind closed doors, you have some people that were very upset about the anti-sanctuary cities bill just because of the national attention that it gave you. But the governor, to his credit, did sign the anti-sanctuary city bill. He signed it. So that's great. Socially, we are doing much better than we were. But in terms of economic issues, the uncomfortable truth, rather than the comfortable lie, uncomfortable truth is we still have Democrat fiscal policies going on in this state. And I guess my question to you is, does it matter to you? I know the social issues are at the top of everybody's list because they are moral issues, mainly life, protecting life. And on that issue, we have turned things around. There were people in this state in the 1990s that were in church every Sunday that had no idea what an abortion actually was, and they thought it was perfectly fine. Well, they knew what an abortion was, but they didn't actually know, at 5-6 weeks, the baby has all of its fingers and toes and all, the heartbeat. They had no idea what they were actually doing. Now you say, well, Paul, it doesn't matter. They shouldn't, the concept of life, it's sacred, everything else. Yeah, I agree with all that, but that's hindsight is 20/20. I'm just saying there were people that were just not educated as to what was really going on. And maybe that's the case now when it comes to these fiscal issues. But, and I think it maybe is, because the people that approach me, a lot of them, now as of late, this gets less and less, but a lot of people in the past used to approach me about running for office. And they'd say, Paul, what do you think? You want to run for, I want to run for office. I mean, like, well, what are you passionate about? He was like, well, I'm pro-life. I'm like, I got that. I am too. It's my number one issue. I'm not going to vote for somebody that's not pro-life, It's just a non-negotiable. But I said everybody's that way now. I mean, for the most part, everybody's going to be pro-life. So in order for you to, if you want my support, I'm going to have to know what you think about tax policy and really just big government programs. Are you one of these people that believe that it's the government's responsibility to come up with an answer for every problem that we face in life? because that's the tendency. And that's what really starts to kind of separate people. And, at first, you get people that they say, oh, yeah, fiscal policy, and you can tell they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, well, let's hope that. Thing is, if you don't know what you're talking about fiscally, and if you don't know what you're talking about on tax policy, it's very easy that when the establishment comes out with their talking points as to why a bad bill is good, a lot of people, because they're not used to thinking critically in those areas, they take the propaganda hook, line, and sinker. That's always interesting to find, when they realize there's another point of view on this. Yeah, well, that is the nature of the beast of politics as well. The uncomfortable truth is that we've been voting in the state of Arkansas for Republicans for almost 10 years, and we have massive supermajorities. But we're not moving the needle very much on tax policy, big government issues, and we should just accept it and try to do better. That's what I would say. Let's not try to say that we somehow succeeded in this specific area. The Republican Party platform, lower taxes to produce economic growth. You might say, well, we lowered the tax structure. We made Arkansas look more competitive on paper. You can say that, but please don't leave out the fact that there's now a net tax increase on the people, and we're giving the government more money than we would have if the 92nd General Assembly had never happened. Your wallets would be heavier if the legislators would have never gone to Little Rock and legislated anything in your name. You would have more money coming your way than you do now. July 1st starts the internet tax, and October 1st, your gas taxes go up. And that's just the beginning. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News. My name is Paul Harrell, and we'll be back in just a moment.
The way elections are done, and what they're doing in Arkansas is trying to do it through redistricting.
Oh,
and
right.
the irony is a Republican has never drawn a congressional district or a state senate or state house district. I don't believe in the history of the state. The only time you might could argue was during Reconstruction, but those really weren't even Republicans. They were carpetbaggers and scallywags, as they were called. But at least over 140 years since that's happened. But all of a sudden, we've got a problem with it in the state.
Right. So just to remind everybody, what we have here is the districts are redrawn by who are they redrawn by now? The governor has a say, Secretary of State say. Basically, people who are Republicans have a say in this, and we now have a movement that says no, we don't want Republican officials to redraw the districts because, every 10 years you get to do this after the census.
Hey, folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. For all of our listeners, if you ever missed the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com. Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes. Well, I tell you one thing, that President Trump is a warmonger, man. He just keeps starting wars everywhere. He started that war with North Korea. Remember that? Millions died when he started that war with North Korea. Like everybody said he was going to. And he was going to start. He said he was going to start that war with Iran, and didn't he? He bombed them, and now we got ground troops in there. He's such a warmonger. But really, he's weak. I mean, President Trump is weak. He took Kim Jong-un and he said he was going to do all this terrible stuff to him. Then they had these negotiations, and he didn't get what he wanted yet. What a weak president. What a lack of leadership. Took a guy that had a gun pointed to the head of the world and actually calmed him down. What a weak guy. And then, what he did with Iran, saying that he was going to go and bomb them, start this war with them, and then backed off because of common sense. Because he didn't want to kill 150 people over a piece of equipment that was blown out of the sky. Can we really trust this guy? Can we really trust him to be the leader that we want him to be when he's so indecisive and he can't make up his mind whether or not he wants to go to war or not? He doesn't just make up his mind and say we're going to war and then shut himself down to potentially receive other information that might shed a different new light on the thing and provide a different perspective. I mean, he's such a wimp, President Trump. The guy can't win for losing, man. I mean, he's winning, but you know what I mean? The media just... somebody on Facebook wrote, in envelope A, President Trump is a warmonger. In envelope B, he's weak. And I don't know about you, but I feel like the United States of America is stronger than we've ever been in terms of the over the Iran issue, in terms of the way we look right now. That President Trump communicates to the entire world. He's in George W. Bush's, I'm the decider. He's the decider. He's the one that's going to make the decision as to whether or not we go to war, and only him. And so it actually shows great power. Right? And what Joe, hey Joe, when you have great power, what you also have, what also comes with great, with great power. You guys know. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Feel free to give us a call or text message. And when we come back, we'll be talking to Mr. Reggie Cowan. Go to conduitnews.com. Check out this story. This is what we're going to be talking about. Privilege walk, sexual assault allegation, fuel, Arkansas School for Math, Science, and Arts investigation. Check it out. And our interview that we did with State Representative Brant Smith last week on this subject. It's all up at conduitnews.com. Back in just a moment.
Elections are done, and what they're doing in Arkansas is trying to do it through redistricting. And the irony is a Republican has never drawn a congressional district or a state senate or state house district. I don't believe in the history of the state. The only time you might could argue was during Reconstruction, but those really weren't even Republicans. They were carpetbaggers and scallywags, as they were called. But at least over 140 years since that's happened. But all of a sudden, we've got a problem with it in the state.
Right. So just to remind everybody, what we have here is the districts are redrawn by who are they redrawn by now? The governor has a say, Secretary of State say. Basically, people who are Republicans have a say in this, and we now have a movement that says no, we don't want Republican officials to redraw the districts because every 10 years you get to do this after the census, but now we want some committee to do it, and it's really, I think, to try to make sure that the Democrats still have a fighting chance. And if you go look at David Couch, this attorney, if you go look at his Twitter handle, it says believer in direct democracy, which essentially is an abolition of the representative government process in and of itself, if you really look at that term, which is socialism. I mean, direct democracy is just another term for socialism. Matter of fact, in the early 20th century, the word democracy was synonymous with the word socialism, which is why our founders commented extensively on how we were not a democracy, but we were a constitutional republic. Anyway, go ahead, Congressman.
Yeah, the current law in Arkansas when it comes to the congressional district is that the state legislature draws those districts.
Right, okay.
When it comes to state house and state senate districts, the governor, the attorney general, and the secretary of state draw those districts. Well, in 2011, after the 2010 census, those districts were redrawn for the 2012 election by a Democratic governor and Democratic attorney general. They drew the state house and state senate seats, and then a Democratic-controlled house and Democratic-controlled senate drew the congressional seats. So if people are complaining about the way the seats are drawn in Arkansas right now, they were drawn by Democrats in 2011, just like every one of them have been drawn all the way back to the Civil War. But what they're wanting to do now is create a so-called nonpartisan commission. Anytime you hear the word commission and nonpartisan, that's a fairy tale. So somebody's got to put those people on the commission, and everybody comes somewhere with a different word.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we go. All right, privilege headline: Privilege Walk, sexual assault allegation, fuel ASMSA investigation. Folks, last week, State Representative Brant Smith, a Republican from Jonesboro, interviewed on this program and revealed some disturbing allegations concerning the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Science, and the Arts. Smith said many parents had strong concerns about the policies of the ASMSA administration have enforced, in some instances not enforced. At least one of Smith's constituents have a child that attend the school in Hot Springs, and as a result of the many allegations, one detailing a sexual assault where the administration failed to notify authorities, Smith says several legislators are investigating and want to bring ASMSA officials before the legislature's Joint Performance Review Committee to answer questions. One instance reportedly alarming to parents and students deals with a school-sanctioned privilege walk where students are forced to answer questions about their family and socioeconomic status. The students are instructed to take steps forward or backward depending on answers to questions like, do you live in a two-parent household? According to emails obtained by Conduit News, the exercise is a mandatory program apparently designed to single out the differences between students so they understand who has privilege and who is a supposed victim. Obviously, this is disturbing because this is a political issue, and the Arkansas School for Maths and Science and the Arts is a taxpayer-funded institution. Why can't they just teach reading and writing and arithmetic and leave the politics at the door? Joining us now, we have someone who's been following this even, I guess, more closely than I have. His name is Reggie Cowan. He's a resident of Hot Springs, where the school is located. Reggie, how are you?
Good morning, Paul.
It's good to have you. So tell us, Reggie, where were you when you first heard this? Because I understand that the local community down there in Hot Springs, you guys have been, there's been letters to the editor written over this. This is something that's been boiling for a long time.
Correct. This started back in September. I met a young lady during Jan Morgan for Governor campaign that had a child that was a student there. He was a senior. And she sent me an email during that time and said that the school sends out emails to the students and parents, and they notified them of a political event for a Democrat, Hayden Schammel, that was running against Bruce Westerman. And that kind of raised my eyebrows, and I took that information to our local newspaper, to the editor. He said, yeah, that was an ethics violation, and he sent a reporter out, and I wrote a letter to the editor. But during that time, I've been a member of the Garland County Tea Party since the inception, April 15th, 2009. And under the banner of Citizens for the American Agenda, we took it up on ourselves to look into this because we started seeing a problem.
So it all started when you got word that the school was favoring one political candidate over another, the Democrat, which...
Yeah, they were using their server. The taxpayers pay for this. It's not under the Department of Education. It's operated by the University of Arkansas. So that kind of got the ball rolling. And then in the meantime, this issue about favoritism and bullying and other things has been going on for a few years now, kind of under the radar, just among the parents and their kids. And so this was brought to light that all this has been going on. It's kind of been boiling, and then they had a Board of Visitors meeting back on May 13th. And this is when it kind of came to a boil. I had been trying to get statewide media to cover this, the Little Rock stations, and there was one station showed up, videoed the whole thing, and they never ran the story.
Interesting.
So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
No, absolutely. So tell me about this meeting. I got one perspective. Last week we interviewed State Representative Smith, and he attended that meeting. Apparently, I'm told there was many parents there, and they all wanted to speak about a lot of different issues they were having.
Yes, and I was glad to see Representative Smith show up. I believe he had two parents that were his constituents, and came all the way from Jonesboro down here to attend that meeting. And so, yes, the main thing that I got from the meeting was that the education part, the academic part, is excellent. They're having issues with the social life, or what's called res life, and that's where all the separation is going on, bullying and picking on.
Let me ask you this. So you think,
go ahead,
after they do this privilege walk, where they answer questions like, do you have a two-parent household, and you know any of the other questions they ask, by the way?
I don't have it right here in front of me, but if your parents were white collar,
okay,
such as an engineer, doctor, lawyer.
So after that happens and the separation, are they put in a different hallway or on a different floor, or are you just saying there's bullying, meaning I guess, are there more socioeconomically disadvantaged kids, and then they bully the ones who are wealthy?
I believe so. And it was reported that the director, Corey Alderdice, he had fired a recruiter. Her name was Valerie Carpenter. And his statement was that he wanted her to lower the standards so they could be, quote, more inclusive, unquote. So where have you heard that term before?
Oh, exactly. So I guess he didn't like some of the demographics. We have a guy who doesn't like the demographics based on the standards, because this is supposed to be an exclusive school. It's supposed to be a school for juniors and seniors and people who are I'm assuming, more gifted at math and science.
Correct. And, what started off as, a school for exceptional students has become one, just like many other schools now, to be more inclusive. So these kids that are exceptional or privileged, or whatever term you want to use, they're separated from the ones that are not so exceptional or gifted or whatever term you want to use.
What kind of bullying are we talking about?
Well, just not allowed to be in the student government. Your name's not, you might be straight A student and capable of leadership roles, but then you're not allowed to. Imagine that happens in Arkansas a lot too, where the right person to run for an office is not given that chance. So that's one way they do it. Another way is by the teachers, not the teachers, the staff. They separate these kids out, and where they're excluded from activities and events that would promote those students to a higher level.
They talk about the privilege walk. I mean, when you say privilege, though, is this based on race at all?
I believe it is, and that's something that I don't know that it can be helped, that some students are not as privileged as others. But, I've seen in the past where kids, rise above that, and they're determined to not become or not be ruled by their socioeconomic past.
Mm-hmm. What's the community like? I mean, what are people saying in the community? And I know you've got a lot of state legislators now investigating this. What are you hearing on that front?
Well, we have some here local that are kind of working behind the scene. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I know that they're trying to get things happening. And I know now, I mentioned something the other night to one of the legislators about an audit, not only the joint performance review that Representative Brant Smith is taking on, but I mentioned something to Representative Womack. He's on the audit committee, and he kind of got the ball rolling on that. And I told him, I said, I think, that they should be audited, and due to that, I think Senator Bill Sample was responsible for sending a letter to the Senate Audit Committee, and Senator Rapert got on it, and so after all that, and these issues have been brought forward, they're going to receive a legislative audit, and it will include any nonprofit too. So I think it's going to take time.
Yeah.
But we'll get to the bottom of it.
So the privilege walk, socioeconomic status, some of it is race. Is any of the privilege have to do with sexual orientation?
I believe it does. They've this is something that a lot of the students even are concerned about. One of the things that was brought to my attention was during an orientation period, one of the parents said Corey Allardyce had mentioned that something about LGBTQ 15 times in 30 minutes, and they felt uncomfortable during that discussion. A lot of these students are segregated into one hallway or one floor, and I don't know that is an issue that ought to be promoted among minors.
Interesting stuff. Okay, so the investigation goes forward. We're talking with Reggie Cowan. He's a resident of Hot Springs. And, we've had conversations, Reggie, you and I, off of, outside of this particular interview. So I do know what a hot button issue this is. I think the overall thing here, from what we've discussed, is these are political ideologies that are being, it appears to be forced on these children. And that's what they are. They're children. With taxpayer dollars. It's a taxpayer-funded institution. So, if anything, it was just, hey, you can believe what you want to believe personally. If you're a teacher, I know the teachers are even oppressed in some situations, I'm told as well. They don't think this stuff's good. But the administrators, you got to leave the politics at the door, though. I mean, it's you're there to teach kids math. You're there to teach them science. You're there to teach them arts. But it seems from what I'm hearing, there's somebody's in a position of power somewhere. And they want, it's almost like they want to punish those kids who do have better circumstances for whatever reason. And that is not only wrong, but it is a political ideology. And it's one that people are debating right now.
You're correct. I believe that the director, Corey Allardyce, he's using his position to promote a liberal agenda.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to follow it. I'll give you the last word, Reg, if you have anything else you want to add.
I've had many parents, after this has kind of started, kind of to the top, more to the top, if they'll go to the Facebook page, Citizens for the American Agenda, they can leave their comments. I've had alumni, I've been in contact with some of the past students. They said that they care about that school. That's where they lived for 2 years, and they're aware of and upset about some of the situations that are going on. And some of them, their siblings are attending, and it seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly time for the oversight body, the Arkansas legislature, to get involved here, and I'm glad that's finally going to happen.
Me too.
All right. Reggie, appreciate it, sir. Thanks for spending time with us this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, folks, telephone number 870-275-9799. Folks, feel free to check out the article from last week, Privilege Walk, Sexual Assault Allegation Fuel ASMSA Investigation. This talks about this meeting. It's an interview with State Representative Brant Smith, who's also been all over this. Let me know what you think. When we say privilege, we're talking about white privilege. We're talking about really a lot of stuff I would imagine is based in that study of critical race theory, which is what this is the new Marxism. It's cultural Marxism. It's a way to divide us up even more. And you've got children who are at this school because they are in the top of their class, and now they're being bullied because of I guess being successful and that sort of thing. We'll continue to follow this. Your taxpayer dollars, whether you agree with this idea or not, should not be used in this way when we have parents trusting their kids to the government to educate them. Maybe that's a problem in and of itself. We got to take a break. 870-275-9799. Back in a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Finding great
worldview, and to think that you're going to create a nonpartisan commission, what it's doing is just giving Democrats an opportunity to get control of the pen again and try to draw districts. On the federal level, I'm not sure how they could redraw districts to hurt Republicans on the federal level at this time, but in the state house and state senate, they could probably gerrymander it for Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's definitely. I mean, you got super majorities down there right now, and I think they.
Yeah, so to think that you've got super majorities of one party and they're trying to create something to let the minority party draw the district.
Yeah, when the Democrats gave us what we currently have, and the people voted for super majority. Yeah, that's very, very interesting, fascinating stuff. Well, yeah, and I now that you say that, I remember it. Real quick, on that, the Democrat Party, they're not. You got state.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, this week is going to be interesting because the Democrats are going to start to debate, and they've already prepared Joe Biden. They've already hog-tied him and put an apple in his mouth, and they're ready to consume Joe Biden. That's going to be very interesting to see what happens during these debates. Also, we have this headline. The president, as we've been doing the show this morning, the president has come out with 2 new tweets, and I love these. China gets 91% of its oil from the Strait. I'm assuming the Strait of Hormuz. Japan 62%, and many other countries likewise. So why are we protecting the shipping lanes for other countries for many years for zero compensation? All of these countries should be protecting their own ships on what has always been a dangerous journey. We don't even need to be there in that the U.S. has just become by far the largest producer of energy anywhere in the world. The U.S. request for Iran is very simple. No nuclear weapons and no further sponsoring of terror. Interesting. So, the Strait of Hormuz. He's saying, just like he did with NATO, you got to pay your fair share, buddy. If you want us to protect you, you got to do things that make sense. NATO needs to be. We got NATO to protect us from Russia. Then you got Germany making Russia rich by inking these energy deals with them. Fascinating that the president people's heads are gonna explode over this. That we should be compensated for. Absolutely, we should be compensated for it. Once again, have you ever even thought about it? No, you haven't ever thought about it. He certainly thinks outside of the box. That's for sure. Anyway, let's get to the meme of the day. Meme of the day. Did we go with the I'm just a bill one? Is that what we went with? Yes, I'm just a bill sitting there on Capitol Hill. Again, this is from just conservative memes on Instagram, and it's you got the bill talking with what is that kid's name? Johnny or something? I don't know. It's something generic. You know, how's a bill get made? Well, how does a bill become a law? Let me tell you. How does a bill become a law? And then it just cuts to a big wad of cash being transferred from one person to another. So apparently a bill becomes a law with cash money. We'll post it up at the Conduit News Twitter feed at Conduit News. as well as Facebook.com/Conduit News, and on Instagram as well at Conduit News. Do what? That's right. So many different ways. Yeah, it could be direct compensation to the politician. It could be sending uranium to the to the Russians. It could be could be lobbyists. Let's see, what else could it be? It could be Medicaid companies, Medicaid entities. How does a bill become a law? Well, you got to find you got to find Jeremy Hutchinson, and you got to pay him $9,000 a month, and then he'll pass whatever you want for preferred family health care. I mean, that's a possibility. Let's see, how does a bill become a law? Well, the payoff might be at the end of the law too. So you go ahead and pass the bill, like general improvement funds with Jake Files. He didn't get paid until after the law was passed, when he got the money wired to his account. Or you get paid before the bill is even introduced, or the bill gets drafted and gets filed, and then you get like an advance where you don't even know if it's going to be a law or not. When he got all that money, there was that big wire transfer from that had to do with tort reform with Jake Files.
The thing I love about this meme is it's bipartisan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It equally attacks both sides.
Equally.
Because this, honestly, if there's one thing this singles out, it's the swamp. It doesn't single out the actual clean legislators. This just is aimed at the swamp, and 100%.
It's so much less simple than you thought it was, right? I mean, what if they?
This is very complex.
Yeah. What if they actually amended, this, and actually said, well, this is how it's supposed to work, but let me tell you how it does work, and do it for kids, like. Educate them in civics on like what actually is going on. And I know people probably already done that like in a parody sense, but I'm talking about legitimately, factually, like tell them about insider trading. Like, how does the bill become a law? Well, he worked really hard on it, but then he's got inside information, and well, he can't directly do it. No, he can't, but he can certainly tell his brother-in-law over Thanksgiving dinner, hey, I think this stock's going to be hot. I don't know where I got my information, but maybe you should buy some shares of this one.
How does the bill become a law? Just tell them you worked over the weekend.
That's right. We worked over the weekend on this.
All those numbers, those are weekend numbers.
Weekend numbers. We worked over the weekend on this. If you work over the weekend, that's somehow... Oh, you worked over the weekend. Oh, so that's like arguing from a position of authority. Like, sir, I have serious questions about your number. This happened with Jim Hendren. I have serious questions about your numbers, this earned income tax credit. Oh, look, I mean, we worked over the weekend on this. Oh, you were, you know what? That answers my questions. Yes. I'll vote for your bill.
Was it a weekend at Bernie's?
I don't know. But anyway, feel free, folks. You can get the meme of the day. Again, at Conduit News on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll post it here momentarily, as well as the podcast. Many of you don't know, but if you can't get the program during the day, you don't want the video archives, you just pull out your phone, your iPhone, and click on the podcasts app and search for Conduit News, and you'll get 2 one-hour files, a little less than 1 hour, but 2 one-hour files every day of hour 1, hour 2 of the program, and you can listen to it. And streaming audio uses far less data than if you use video. But if you want to watch the program, you can get those archives as well. Folks, we're going to wrap up here. We're going to be back here tomorrow at 6:05. Hope you have a great Monday, a prosperous one. Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.